tell you when I got saved, and then I'll tell you later years.
Okay.
Okay. I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic school. They did not teach the Bible. I said, you get the Bible from the priest. He'll tell you what it says. And Christians believe that if you read the Bible, you can understand it. And I found that people that believe it can understand it. When someone's way off the line on the Bible and thinks they're talking the Bible, you realize they're not a Christian if they're not following the word of Jesus Christ. And it tells us that in the Bible. I knew there was a God. I believed in God. I believed in Jesus Christ. But I knew there was something missing in my life. And when Grandma and I got married, she was a Christian and born-again Christian, and I promised her, she was afraid me being a Catholic would be a problem for us being married. And I promised her, I said, I am done with the Catholic Church. I went there for years. It hasn't done anything for me. My folks forced me to go, and I'm not going anymore. I followed that, and once in a while I would go to church with my mother or something, but I had no intentions of ever going back, and Lake made that very plain. I was selling insurance, and I had a lot of conversations with people. He wants something. A lot of conversations with people that believed in Jesus Christ, and I talked to them and talked to them and talked to them, and I was very intrigued by what they were saying, but nobody ever led me to Christ. And finally, I was at a man's home collecting his insurance, and he lives right over here, right straight across this subdivision right now.
Oh my goodness.
And his name is Reverend Dave Miller. He's about 3 or 4 years older than I am. And I was talking to him, and he said, "You're searching, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am." I said, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know that there's an empty piece in my heart and in my life, and I go to church all the time, but I have never found the secret. And he explained to me how simple it is to accept Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. All you have to do is believe. All you have to do is believe and trust him. We were talking, he shoved the couch out in the middle of the room, and his kids were walking back and forth, getting ready for school the next day. And here the couch was out in the middle of the room, and we were kneeling down behind it. He told me the story of Jesus, and he said, "Would you like to come to know Jesus today?" And I said, "Yes, I would." And I was embarrassed. I accepted Jesus, and I was embarrassed. I was 25 years old. All these kids are walking back and forth, and they'd already found God. And I've been searching hard for God. And when I was 25. And I finally accepted God, and I thought, I need to leave here. And so I got in the car, I drove home, and I told Sandy, I said, "Sandy, I just got saved." And we sat on the Bible, and we talked a little bit. I had never been able to read the Bible. I never could understand them. And I walked over onto our stereo, and I picked up the Bible, this great big Bible, still got it, and family Bible. And I picked that up, and I started reading somewhere in Matthew. I knew every word that it said. I understood it. In 2 weeks, I was teaching Sunday school, and I was 25 years old, and I've been doing it ever since. I'm 85 years old now. I'm still doing it, but now I'm basically probably not going to be able to do it again. Then this June, I went to the hospital. I was throwing up. I was having diarrhea, and I had to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, and they kept me there for 10 days. And they did all kinds of tests and everything. And one of the tests was they did 4 biopsies on me. And one was the liver, one was the blood, and they discovered that I had a blood infection between my liver and my kidneys. And the infection was causing pressure on my kidneys so that they were leaking out back through the liver. And that was causing all of my problems. And so they did the test, and they said that your liver is now leaking because there's too much pressure on it. And they put me on antibiotics, and they got rid of them. And they did 4 biopsies, and they gave me the results of 3 of them very quickly. They said, you have a blood infection. We're going to treat that with antibiotics. And they didn't really say much. Oh, they had a bile duct was blocked. And so they had to get rid of that. What they did, they put a stent in to bypass that so that my liver would start working. And they didn't say anything about my pancreas. They just kind of brushed over that. And I thought, that doesn't sound good to me. And but nevertheless, I let it go. And then a couple of weeks went by, and over about 10 days went by, and the doctor walked in. They did all this biopsy and all that stuff, and we kept waiting for the test. They gave us 3 results. They didn't give us the result of the pancreas. And I was walking down the hall, and I ran into this doctor. I didn't know him from anybody. I didn't know he was a doctor. And he said, I'm your cancer doctor. That's how I found out I had cancer.
Goodness.
He said, I'm your cancer doctor. He says, unfortunately, he says, I can't do anything for you. You're too old to have surgery. And he started talking about the
Chemo and radiation.
And I told him I'm not going to have anything to do with that. He said that we're going to get along fine. He says, because I'm only going to try and keep you comfortable. I said, well, we're almost on the same track. I says, except I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe he's going to heal me. And we're going to pray, and we're going to change our diet, and we're going to strive to overcome this. And my daughter has overcome it, and I'm going to ask the Lord to remove it from me, because I don't think my ministry is done yet. And it turned out to be the greatest thing this ever happened to me. It was so easy for me when he told me I had a terminal cancer. He said, you have 6 months to live. They were still taking me around on these tests, on these gurneys, and man, I started talking to everybody in the halls. I started praising everybody. I would talk to the nurses. Do you know Jesus Christ? And it was so easy and so simple. And I have been a Guinean for 55 years. And I've testified all through the years, but nothing like after I was told. And people were blessed. They had me give my testimony in front of church. And there was probably 400 people in our church, and I know 200 of them were crying. And I set up 2 large Bible distributions while I was in the hospital. One of them, we probably gave away 3,000 Bibles. And then the next one, we gave away probably 300 because we unfortunately we had scheduled a Gideon picnic on the same night that they had a praise for our police and a Bible distribution, which I set up from the hospital. There was only 2 of us there, but we handed out in 2 hours about 300 Bibles. And I know 200 policemen. I talked to every one of them there, and people were amazed that the Sunday before I was testifying that I had pancreatic cancer, and it was the happiest day of my life. And then they saw me handing out Bibles in 80-degree weather, running, chasing people down, talking to them about the Lord. I have been blessed. I have been blessed.